Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? It's Wes. Two teams that had a very slothful start to the season and looked very beatable at points will now meet in Atlanta. Obviously, losses can still happen before then, so we will be paying very close attention to the last two games of the season as playoff hopes are still very real. But yeah, Jesse, how's it going? How was the weekend?
I mean, I felt pretty good. I was nervous. It's like you said, we knew that losses can happen even when you're on a roll, and despite having a lot of hype, things can still go wrong. But all in all, a pretty good weekend, and there was certainly some news that came out this week that I am just basking in, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a good while now, and it what was the meme that Matt sent? It's finally happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of Matt, he is under the weather, so he will not be in this show. So we wish him speedy recovery, feeling well, yeah, let's go ahead and get into some of those games from last week.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right, yeah. So the first one from last week, Alabama at Kentucky, Bama winning this one 49-21. Matt getting the point here. Bama seems to be getting better, and I mean every week really, and Kentucky's been struggling this season, so I think because of that I really wasn't surprised at all with this outcome. As I mentioned earlier, alluded to, with this win Alabama clinches the West and a trip to Atlanta on championship weekend. So I did have another stat here on Jalen Milroe, but I think you've got all the stats covered, Jesse. Let's go ahead and get to you. What do you got?
Yeah, this one was a good one to watch. It was fun. It was one of those games where, we're coming off of big wins. We're coming off of wins that we weren't really sure we would have, and we're going into the potential to lock down the SEC West. And so there's a lot of what Nick Saban likes to call rat poison, and they avoided it, and Tyrion Arnold, he told reporters after the game that the coaching staff had actually placed real working rat traps around the team facility, and he actually got pinched by one, but he did not get trapped by this trap game on the field. So very funny, but it happens. Rat poison and buying into the hype and not performing at your best absolutely happens. We've seen Alabama do it. We've seen other teams do it. So it was good to see that we were remaining a little bit humble, still had a chip on our shoulders, and we're able to clinch the West. But I think the other big point about this game is Jalen Milroe. Milroe scored 6 total touchdowns on Saturday. He became just the third quarterback in program history to do that, along with 2 top 5 NFL draft picks. So it's insane to see the way that he's progressed. I mean, he came on the scene. He was really a big deal in week 1. We got very disappointed in week 2, and we weren't really sure what we were going to get. And I think after playing at, UCF, we were able to take a step back. We knew Milroe was our guy, and they talked about it a lot during the Kentucky game. But instead of calling the offense that just exists, the plays that just exist in the arsenal, they took a step back when they realized that Milroe was the guy, and they decided to not only call plays that worked for him, but had him come in and drafted plays that worked for him, and had him say, like, hey, this one doesn't work for me. I can't execute that, and cut them out of the playbook entirely, which is a huge deal. And I think we're starting to see how successful that's becoming in calling a system to the talent that you have, and not just sticking with a system just because it's worked in the past. So like I mentioned, he's had 18 total touchdowns and 3 receptions, since we were at Texas A&M. Alabama's potential this season has increased, and I think that is entirely due to the performance that we're seeing from Jalen Milroe. He's managing the game, he's controlling the game, and he's doing an excellent job despite what I think is still a really terrible offensive line.
It's definitely been an interesting evolution from uncertainty to being benched to getting better every week, as it seems, since he's been put back in, which, to your point about the plays that set him up for success, that seems to be working much, much better as they continue to figure that out as well. In terms of the rat poison, I think I would have just gone with some decon maybe and put around.
Yeah.
Those rat traps are no joke. They are painful.
No, they are not. And then to talk about Kentucky, I was on the bandwagon of Leary going into the season. I thought Kentucky would be a dark horse. I was wrong. And I don't know. I don't see, and again, it could be not having every weapon around him that he needs. It could be coaching decisions. I'm not really sure, but Devin Leary is just not doing it for me. I don't know that he's the guy for Kentucky. I'm not sure what's happening. But it was a rough Kentucky day in Kroger Field and early.
Yeah, it really was. So I don't really know what to say about Kentucky other than I feel like they're really in terms of style, they're trying to mimic a lot of what Georgia and Alabama are doing. It's just they don't really have the personnel to do that right now. So we'll see. Obviously, I know recruiting is a little bit more difficult there, so I don't know if that's going to change. So, and also I think they kind of rely on things like the transfer portal to kind of plug some gaps. And obviously, they had Leary this season, and we're very hopeful there. And things just haven't really panned out the way that they thought they would. So, all right, let's talk about Vanderbilt at South Carolina. South Carolina winning this one in decisive fashion, 47-6. I got the point here. I can't really think of a nice way to summarize this, but each week Vandy looks more and more like an FCS school. Like this is South Carolina, a team that has had their own struggles this year, absolutely blowing them out, and Vandy just has absolutely no identity on offense. I'm not even really sure what to ask here, but like Jesse, what were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I think this is the SEC win, the in-conference win that South Carolina needed. They weren't doing well either. So there's nothing like a tune-up game at Vandy to make you feel better about yourself when you're in the SEC. And certainly South Carolina did that. They held, and it's hard to even say held, right? They held Vanderbilt to under 100 yards in the first half and throughout most of the third quarter. Their offense for the Gamecocks has been really inconsistent this season. I think we had, a lot of hype. We've seen some great performances. We've also seen abysmal ones, but they were averaging this season 382.7 yards per game, and they looked improved against Vanderbilt. Again, hard to say because the Vanderbilt defense is not necessarily one that I have a lot of faith in, but South Carolina finished with over 450 yards of offense before, they called final clock said 0 time. And Vanderbilt turned over the ball multiple times during the game. And, South Carolina's defense was able to look pretty solid against them. So Commodores were held to 6 points on offense. Not great. Again, it's not a surprising performance from Vandy, and it's exactly what South Carolina needed to make themselves feel better because they have an SEC win.
It's just gotten to the point where it's almost kind of it feels lazy and trite to just even bring up the coaching situation at Vandy and just the program and stuff like it. Bringing it up is almost kind of like it's unnecessary. It's like is this just? I mean, I guess it's just normal. I mean, I don't know. It's
being said.
It's just such a weird thing. Like I don't even know what to say about it, honestly, because it's like you hope for better. You have seen the program do better, but now it's like to say that Vandy has regressed is, I think, an understatement right now to the point where they're just looking like they can't beat hardly anybody. So
I truly don't know how you turn it around.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Again, like I was saying, it's like I don't even know what to say about this. It's like. If you're a Vandy fan, apologies. Got a great baseball team. So
baseball team.
There's that. All right, let's talk about the next one, which was Tennessee at Missouri. A shocker here as Missouri wins 36-7. I was the only one to pick Missouri. I know, yeah. So I got the point here. I was the only one who picked Missouri, but I certainly didn't see it panning out like this. Mizzou is, like I mentioned in the show last week, is a deceptively difficult place to play. And honestly, with the score 13-7 Mizzou at half, this one kind of seemed like one of those that just sort of slowly spiraled away for Tennessee. It was like, they're like, okay, we're behind, but we can do this. And then it was just like slowly things sort of just got away from them. They were in it, only down a couple of scores through 3 quarters, but the wheels just fell off in the 4th quarter, with Mizzou scoring 2 touchdowns, one on a good drive and then one on a pick 6, which obviously was the dagger. A shocking outcome here. Jesse, what were your thoughts?
I mean, Tennessee had no run game in this game. The offense was very unbalanced. I think Joe Milton tried to do what he could pass wise, but when you don't have a run game to supplement that, your offense is going to struggle. And that's what we saw out of the Volunteers here. Injuries are catching up with Tennessee as well. I feel like they have several at wide receiver, and they're not able to plug those holes. I don't know if there's an issue with the depth chart or what it is. And then again, it's like you mentioned, turnovers. They had 3 turnovers on the day. We always say it, more often than not, if you're the person that wins the turnover battle, you win the game. And it was tough to see, but Mizzou's backfield they were on it, right? I mean, it was the Cody Schrader and Brady Cook show all day. Schrader ran for over 200 yards and had over 100 yards receiving. Cook threw for 275 yards and ran for another 55 yards with a total of 2 touchdowns. And it looked like the Vols defense was just confused all game. And as time kind of went on and clicked away, it was just worse. And Mizzou controlled the clock. I mean, you look at time of possession, Tennessee had 20 minutes and 4 seconds compared to Mizzou's 39 minutes and 56 seconds. Not great, especially for a program in Tennessee that was so hopeful last year and this year. It's just they've been a very inconsistent team this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying Milton hasn't progressed, but I think we are seeing why Hendon Hooker took the spot from him in a lot of these decision making. And yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, for Tennessee here, I mean, obviously they're out of it in the East, but still, bowl games to play for, and they'd love nothing better than to mess up Georgia's chances either, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. So, all right, let's talk about Auburn at Arkansas. Auburn wins huge here, 48-10. Jesse's the only one to pick Auburn, so kudos to you. Another blowout here. Poor Arkansas. It seemed like KJ Jefferson was just trying to do everything himself out there. And I hate we're having to watch this go down this way. Now, here's a telltale stat that will tell you exactly how this game went, as if the scoreboard wasn't enough. Raheem Sanders, one of their best weapons at running back, rushed 8 times for 0 yards. So on the other side, Peyton Thorne looking better and better each game. He accounted for 4 touchdowns in this one, 3 passing and 1 rushing. Jesse, your take on this one?
I mean, you just look at total yards on the game. 517 by Auburn, 255 by Arkansas. Auburn had 32 first downs compared to 10 first downs by Arkansas. Again, they both had 2 turnovers each, but Auburn was able to get it going. I think this was the most complete game of Auburn's season that we've seen thus far. Their front neutralized Arkansas's run game. I mean, KJ Jefferson, it's like you said, he was trying to do as much as he could, kind of put the team on his back, which I feel like he's been doing all season long. And they were able to create multiple turnovers and keep Arkansas to just 3 points until the 4th quarter when Auburn was already up by over 40 points. Not a great showing for Arkansas, not great for Arkansas at home. And I truly am more concerned for Coach Pittman's job.
Yeah, well, and to that point, we actually just had a recent interaction with our, we had a video, should Arkansas fire Sam Pittman? Really just a question, more than not really trying to lead people, but just genuinely asking, should they? Someone just put on there just today, and this video was posted a couple weeks ago, and they put, Yes, in all caps. So I think people are getting impatient as if, as if they weren't impatient before. So
Well, I mean, it's tough, right? Like you see a talent like KJ Jefferson, a
yeah.
huge dude,
Hmm.
um, in one where he's been gritty, he shows leadership, and the rest of the team has shown promise as well. I mean, the Bama game showed a lot of promise. A lot of their losses early in the season were by like 1, 2 points, but they just can't get it done. And I don't know if a coaching change is going to be the thing that gets it done, but something has to change in Fayetteville. And I imagine that the soft spot that the Arkansas loyal have had for Coach Pittman, the patience that they've had with this program is wearing very thin because they keep seeing these glimpses of hope and then it's just crushed. And that's worse than just losing by, 80 points every game.
Yeah. Well, and coordinators can do so much for the head coach. Look at LSU with Coach O. We had it was almost like the perfect storm of coordinators and obviously Joe Burrow and all that. Got him
Alabama's coordinators last year were absolutely terrible.
right.
And I mean, you see, I'm looking at Ole Miss's defense now. There's a common denominator.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously that's on the head coach to find the right coordinators. So um I don't think Pittman's gone after this year, but super, super short leash. And if there's any hint of this next year, I think he'll probably be gone. As much as I hate to say that, because I do like him. I think he is, a good coach. I think he's good for the guys and encouraging and everything like that. But yeah, it may not work out if that continues in this trajectory. So all right, you were talking about Ole Miss in Georgia. Let's go ahead and get to that game. Ole Miss at Georgia. Georgia winning this one 52-17. A lot bigger than was expected. I got the point here. This was a cold and rainy day in Athens. I was actually there the day before watching a soccer game, and it was cold even then, and the temperatures continued to drop. But the fans showed up in full force. Obviously, game day was there, and it was a party all day long. So, first off, I think it's noteworthy to say that Brock Bowers may not actually be a human. He had tightrope surgery just 26 days before this game. When somebody told me that he was a game time decision, I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
It started out, he was mainly a decoy, which you would kind of imagine just getting him out on the field, which worked really well and actually set up McConkey's touchdown in the first quarter. You watched like three guys follow Bowers, and McConkey was wide open for the touchdown there. And then they started targeting him more, including a touchdown at the beginning of the fourth quarter. He did get hit a few times as well and seemed to be okay. I didn't see him running gingerly or anything like that. So I don't understand it. I know there's, miracles of modern medicine and things like that, but still, it was less than a month ago and the dude is already back in full contact. I just don't get it. But this one in the beginning felt like the final score might be 70-60. But Georgia was able to get some stops in the first half and get a little bit of separation, and then only gave up 3 points in the second half. So definitely a major shift there. I think ideally Georgia wants to play that style of football that wears down their opponents, and then they can just finish them off in the second half. And that's what happened here. So Georgia clinches the East with this win, and the SEC championship is set between Alabama and Georgia, as we sort of mentioned earlier. Once again, though, I'm not getting ahead of myself because I recognize that Ole Miss had a lot of injuries, especially on the O-line. So it seemed like they were trying a different combination of linemen on almost every play, with a ton of high snaps that affected the game, especially after Jackson Dart went out of the game late in the third after getting sandwiched between two massive Georgia defenders. Spencer Sanders came in. He had a lot to contend with coming in as his replacement, and obviously Ole Miss wasn't able to do much else. But now I have to say something before we get to any further analysis here, and that is the TikTok keyboard warriors really had a field day with the predictions that we made last week, which, it is what it is. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, right? But it was hilarious. Most of these comments were made after the fact. Just like, imagine the guts that it takes to talk smack after the game has been decided. Like, what? How does that even make sense? But and let me add, so most of these guys are like the alpha idiots, and we all know them, right? They're the puffy vest guy with the PFG hat and the sunglasses with the strap, and they usually leave comments like, "Go Dogs, we whipped that ass." And honestly, I kind of feel bad for them because I feel like that's all they've got going on for them. This is me, a dog fan, saying this about Dogs fans, right? And I'm kind of okay calling them out because A, it's deserved, and B, I know these types of fans exist for pretty much every team.
Absolutely.
So, but they are the antithesis of what we're about on this show. And frankly, what I hope most of humanity is striving for in an effort to be better humans. So anyway, I just had to give that response to all the wonderful people out there. And there's some good ones out there too. I don't want to say that everyone who commented was super negative. So anyway, Jesse, what were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, yeah, this one again, yeah, it's easy to make a prediction when you have the stat line, right? But it's like you said, I mean, you covered a lot of what I had here too. Brock Bowers, insane. 3 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown returning from injury. So that had to have felt really good for him. Losing Jackson Dart was an issue, I think, for Ole Miss, but honestly, I don't know that if he would have stayed in the game, if it would have done much anyways. Kendall Milton on the UGA side, career high 127 yards on the ground. And then, Georgia has extended their FBS best winning streak to 27 games and has now won 12 straight home games against ranked opponents. And I can say, as an Alabama fan and one that follows quite a bit of Alabama accounts, Ole Miss, I mean, we feel you on defense. As I mentioned, I don't know why you felt like Pete Golding would be a good hire after watching what he did to the Tide. But I feel like, Ole Miss was maybe the girl that the guy is out there, he's available, and he's like, no, the reason she and I broke up is it's not what people thought. There was so much more to it. She was mean to me. And then you're like, oh, I believe him. You start dating him, and then you're like, wait a minute, you're the problem. And for Ole Miss, as a program that in the past several years has been great offensively and has still not been able to put together a defense that is up to the caliber of their offense, Golding is not your dude. I'll tell you that. This is a spoiler alert. Golding ain't it. Somebody else has to be it. And they've got to make some hires on that side. I mean, we just talked about it. Coordinators make a difference. You have a great one, you're in good hands. You have a terrible one, it shows. And I think for Ole Miss, unfortunately, it showed.
He's got a really cool visor to go with the beard, though. So, there's that. Yeah, for sure. And I don't really know what the answer is there. I mean, I guess sometimes, with coordinators, you got to go with just who's available. And I don't know if that was the case here.
I feel like we're seeing so many younger coordinators, right? Like before, and maybe it's just because I was younger and I looked at people and I was like, oh, that person's definitely 50. But now I feel like we're seeing so many more younger coordinators get a chance. Tommy Rees is very young. The defensive coordinator for Florida is literally my age. He's 30. And you're just starting to see a trend at other schools as well. Those are just the first two that come to mind that are hiring younger coordinators. And it's not to say that experience is not very well received, but I think we are starting to see different kinds of football being played. And a younger coordinator that might be a little more open to a different playbook or to throwing different ideas out there, or even a younger coordinator who's willing to learn from a head coach and has slightly less of an ego than an older coordinator. Again, that's all conjecture, but I think that's the way that we're starting to see things start to fall.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The willingness to try something different, to try something out of the box. And for all the bad rap, not necessarily bad rap, but just a hard time that people give Saban about being, an old man and not liking technology. But he does adapt when it comes to the game. And if you don't believe me, just look at all the different styles that Bama has played with throughout his tenure there. I mean, it's
Oh,
all over the map, from running back heavy, quarterback game manager, to mobile quarterback, to put the game on the quarterback's shoulders with running support, and just
look
this.
at the Heisman trophies alone and the positions that they went to, and that tells you exactly where Alabama was in their story of how we were playing football.
Mm-hmm.
Ingram, running back, absolutely. Derrick Henry, still a running back. Then you go and you have like Devontae Smith, you've got your wide receiver, and then you have Bryce Young, and it's like you start to see this ebb and flow of the game and where they're the style of football that they're playing by the awards that they're receiving. And in the game of football, as with life lesson, anything else, you have to be fluid. You have to be able to adapt to the trends that are happening in the industry around you. And at the end of the day, we say it all the time, college football and college sports in general, whether we like it or not, is a business and it's an industry. And if you're not willing to change with the times and change with the talent, you will be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, experience is great, but you got to be able to adapt, and so that's key for sure. All right, let's talk about the next game, Florida at LSU. LSU winning this one 52-35. Matt and Jesse had the same differential. We did the math. Jesse gets a point. So kudos there. Yeah, this one, like, first of all, look at Florida taking this one to the fourth quarter on the road in Baton Rouge. Like, we were talking about people who may not be human earlier, and I think Jaden Daniels might be one of them. 606 total yards, 5 touchdowns on the day. And he is the first quarterback in FBS history, not like recent memory or in the conference, FBS history, to have at least 350 yards passing and 200 yards rushing in a game. So great stats offensively for Florida overall as well. And this one was an offensive slugfest, but LSU outscored Florida 35-21 in the second half to close things out. So, Jesse, your thoughts on this one?
This one was wild. I did not expect Florida to even have a dog in this fight. I mean, really, after their performances.
Yeah,
but
makes
you
sense.
mentioned it. Jaden Daniels, have mercy. I mean, have mercy. If you're not watching this young man, you absolutely should be, because he is something else to watch. He truly is amazing. And on Saturday, it was much of the same. It was Jaden Daniels. You mentioned his stats. He was 17 of 26 for passing, 2 touchdowns, on passing for 2 touchdowns. And he was insane on the ground, an incredible 19 and a half yards per carry for him, for the quarterback. He plays quarterback for those that don't know. and UF's defense just was up and down. And it truly is very difficult to have an answer for a quarterback like Jane Daniels, because he isn't just a one style of play type of guy. He's going to kill you in the air. He's going to kill you on the ground. He's got weapons around him. So good luck.
And let's not forget that this was a week after, he was in the concussion protocol, wondering if he might even be allowed to play in this game.
And I don't want to, not talk about Florida either. I mean, Graham Mertz had a great day as well.
Yeah.
26 for 38 for 311 yards, 1 touchdown. That's not a performance to, kind of throw to the wayside either. It's just Florida has got to get some stuff handled on defense as well. I think we're talking about it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels and your defense is not up to snuff, it doesn't matter how much you do on offense. You're just not going to meet that level of production.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm not really sure what we could say about Florida here. Obviously, it's a tough opponent. I mean, no one's discounting that. I mean, no one really gave them a shot in this one anyway. But yeah, you're right. You gotta play defense. Jane Daniels or not, 700 yards is a lot total to give up. So
One game. That's not across
one,
7.
right. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about the final game of last week, Mississippi State at Texas A&M. A&M winning this one 51-10. Jesse got the point here. Max Johnson was out for this one, actually, with a rib injury, but former Fresno State quarterback Jalen Henderson did just fine, passing for 2 touchdowns and rushing for 2 more. That seemed to be a theme, quarterbacks just doing it all in a lot of these games. This was yet another blowout from last week, and yet another game where Mississippi State can't find any offense. If it wasn't for that opening kickoff return for touchdown, it would have been even worse on the scoreboard. So I don't really have much else to say on this because we've got something else to talk about in regards to A&M. But before we move on, Jesse, did you have anything for this one?
I mean, 4 turnovers on Mississippi State's side. 4. That ain't it, y'all.
Yeah.
You can't win when you turn over the ball 4 times. And God bless Mississippi State. I don't know how to help. I don't know.
I would be very surprised if things stay the same, even to the end of the season. I just get the sense that Arnett is just sort of like a placeholder until they find the real guy that they want. Because we've seen what Mississippi State can do fairly recently, as a matter of fact, and I just can't see them allowing this to continue because this is just bad. Granted, I know that their quarterback is out, but still
a big name hire.
Yeah,
things are rough there to the point where if you get a so-so hire, it's not going to turn around recruiting, and the transfer portal is going to kill you.
Right.
You have to make a big name hire. It's also, I'm sorry to say it, I've been there, so I feel like I can. Starkville is hard to recruit to.
Yeah. Stark Vegas, they try to dress it up and, make it appealing, but you're right.
It's hard to recruit to. I mean, and then you're competing in state against Ole Miss, in Oxford, and, they've got the Grove, they've got this, I mean, not that Mississippi State doesn't have its traditions. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying Oxford is slightly different. And again, when you're there in the Southeast, especially right there, literally Tuscaloosa is like an hour away from Starkville. It's right there. It's not that far from Auburn. Like, you've got these schools that are really close by that are other options, and they're going to have to make a splash. And I don't know who's available to do that, but after seeing a lot of performances in the NFL, I imagine there might be some people looking for jobs come February. So hold your horses, Miss State. You might be able to snag somebody.
Well, that's an excellent segue for the news segment, because we do have somebody who's looking for a job, and let's go ahead and talk about that.
Here's the news.
All right, so the big item that we have to talk about today is Jimbo Fisher has been fired from Texas A&M. It is happening. Yeah, they fired him before the end of his 6th season. Defensive line coach and co-defensive coordinator Elijah Robinson will serve as interim head coach for A&M. Fisher ended his tenure there going 45-25 after Kevin Sumlin went 51-26 in 6 full seasons.
And had a Heisman winner.
Jimbo has a buyout somewhere north of $77 million that will be paid over the course of the next 8 years. And a large part of this is because on August the 31st of 2021, A&M awarded him a 4-year fully guaranteed extension, upping his salary to around $9 million a year through 2031. So
amazing what that beating Alabama will do for your contract.
It is. Do you remember when he first took the job and they gave him the national championship plaque with a blank date to be filled out later? Yeah.
I wonder if he gets to take that with him.
I was wondering about that. What do you do with that? Is it just like a paperweight now? Like, I don't know. I would have to probably melt it down and make it into something else, or I don't know.
You give it, I don't even know. You use it as a door stopper.
Yeah.
Or I will gladly get fired for $70 million. Honestly,
pay me not to work.
2.
Just give me like I'll settle for like a quarter of that. Just like, seriously.
I will get fired for less.
So real quick, let me list the top coaching candidates. You have Mike Elko, which is Duke's head coach and former defensive coordinator at A&M. Dan Lanning at Oregon. Lane Kiffin. Mike Norvell at FSU. Kalen DeBoer, Washington's coach. Jeff Traylor, UTSA coach. Cliff Kingsbury, who is a USC senior analyst and who was the OC for A&M back in 2012. And then Glenn Schumann, Georgia co-defensive coordinator.
You left a couple names off there.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, obviously, this has been a long time coming. Jesse, you're a big Jimbo fan. What are your thoughts on this? And who do they get to replace him?
Coaching contracts make me want to put my head through a wall. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I know you have to put guarantees into their contracts because otherwise you're not going to get a big name hire. But the fact that you get to fire somebody and pay them over $70 million while you're still having to pay the person that replaces them is egregious.
Oh, crazy.
Congratulations to his agent. Truly. You did a phenomenal job. You really did, because 3% of that is still really great for you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But this one was weird, right? Because they're coming off a win. We just talked about it. They haven't been great, but it's not like they were as bad as they have been. They've been pretty bad. I think beating Alabama helps. And that didn't happen. So that wasn't great. But you can find something to do with $70 million for several years without having to work. I think what we saw, and again, I'm almost torn, right? Because we see, he's the quarterback whisperer. He's this guy. Didn't see it for a while, but he did have some quarterbacks that did okay. It just wasn't what it needed to be, and it wasn't consistent.
No.
And I think as far as who would replace him, there's several names you mentioned absolutely up there. There's several names being thrown around on the internet by those of us that don't get paid to do this. So some of those are, would Deion Sanders come to the SEC?
I did hear that one.
I mean, Texas money, who knows? Would be fascinating. I don't know how well it would go over, and I don't know that he would leave Colorado right now, but interesting to just mull over. Another one, this one's tough for me personally. I'm telling you, this will never happen. If it happens, everyone pray to whatever God you pray to, because it might be the end of the world. But the Patriots have been doing really bad.
No.
Like, winning two games bad. It's honestly been some of the worst football I've seen. It's just awful. This past weekend in Germany was some of the worst football I've seen. It's
amazing what Tom Brady did for that team.
It's incredible. And a lot of people are saying it's Belichick's last season there. I do not know that that's the case. And I do not think that he would go to college football at all. But how wild would it be? I just want everybody to like pause and think about it. Just like cut off hoodie on the sidelines.
Cut off hoodie at the SEC media days at the podium, just going.
Like, I feel like
what's the teleprompter going to, what's the closed caption is going to do with that? So I don't know.
No, he would punch Lane Kiffin straight in the face at media days, no doubt. He and Saban are friends, so that's fine. But it would be really, really interesting.
Well, that would be interesting. I'm also, this actually just sort of gives my like heart palpitations thinking about it. Is, can you imagine the style and the passion of Deion Sanders mixed with the money that A&M has and all that oil money down there?
Oh,
that I kind of shudder to think what that could turn into. Now, a lot of people are saying that Deion's not ready yet. He needs to get a few more seasons of experience with Colorado. I don't know. I think that he's a great motivator. And I think that he knows how to do that. Like, I don't know what else. Obviously, he played at the highest level as a player. And so I don't really know what else he really needs for preparation. I think that would probably be a home run hire. Now, will they do it? Will they take that chance?
do they have the money to do it?
Well, that's another great question too. Unless they've just got some, bottomless pocket booster out there who doesn't care and is just ready to make it happen. That is a valid point. So I don't know.
I mean, because Deion's not going to come cheap. I mean, he's just
No.
not. But it will be interesting to see who they get, because for them as well, it's got to be another big name hire, and it's got to be a good one because they just wasted a ton of money on one. And I don't know. I saw somewhere on Instagram where someone just posted a picture of Ed Orgeron, and he was like, "There's only one man for the Texas A&M job." I was like, "Oh man,
I love it. Yeah.
okay."
A&M has shown that they are committed to throwing a lot of money at a big name. So I
Yeah.
think that anything short of a big name hire will be perceived as a failure. So even if it's, somebody who might be actually, a decent coach, if it's not necessarily a name that you're like, oh yeah, then I think it's going to be perceived as a failure. Now, I think a lot of the names that were in that list that I found are pretty good. But I think, there are a few other good ones out there, as you mentioned too. So, yeah, it's finally happening. And I guess by all accounts, this was sort of all done, even in the past week. I think Thursday, there was a big meeting. Heard that he was in a meeting for like 4 hours with leadership, and I guess I don't know if that's where he was told what was going to happen. I sort of assumed that that's what happened. So
This had to be in the works for a while. You don't make a
no
decision that costs you $70 million in unemployment cost
right.
lightly or quickly, unless it's something like super egregious, but you don't.
I feel like if you're paying someone that much money, you probably have, regular meetings outlining these are the expectations. This is where we want to be. This is, the wins that we want to be at. These are the must-win games of the season that we have to demonstrate that we are making progress. And obviously, I don't, obviously he didn't meet that. So, as you said, Bama beating Bama went a long way, but even that has a shelf life to it. So.
Ask Auburn.
Yes, exactly. So, all right. Well, we will see who they get. Obviously, a coaching search well underway already, and we'll see what happens there. So, let's go ahead and get into some of the upcoming games.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so the first game that we have here is the Chattanooga Mocs, the shortened version of their original nickname, the Moccasins, and also refers to the Northern Mockingbird, Tennessee state bird. And there you go. Their mascot is Scrappy the Mockingbird, named after former Chattanooga coach AC Scrappy Moore. So they are 7-3 at Alabama 9-1. This is noon on ESPN Plus. And this is the week that everyone makes fun of the SEC's scheduling. Okay, it is what it is. Don't know what to tell you.
I'm not mad about it. It's a tune-up game. Whatever.
Yeah. And let the arbitrary numbers begin. I'll go first here. Bama wins this one 63-3. Jesse, what you got?
I should put who I'm picking to win instead of just a score.
I had no doubt.
No doubts there. Yeah, I expect Jalen Milroe leaves this game pretty early. We start to see Ty Simpson in here right after half, if not before then. And the Tide's going to roll 52-6.
Yeah. Matt will get in his picks at some point. I don't have them currently, but he will get them in, and we'll have them before the games get started. Next is the UL Monroe Warhawks. They're 2-8 at Ole Miss 8-2. Noon on SEC Network. Ole Miss, no problem getting back on track here. Ole Miss is winning this one. I've got them winning 45-10. Jesse?
A lot has gone on this week for Ole Miss. They're frustrated. They're probably embarrassed. They've got a lot just going on outside of even their performance last Saturday. So I think they're going to take it out on the field, and I'm picking the Rebels 42-10.
And there's a lot of embarrassment there, not just on the field too. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the off the field stuff that they've got going on, but still, it's something that they have to deal with, right?
Sure, yeah.
Regardless. So there's a lot going on right now with that program. Next, Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles, 3-7 at Mississippi State, 4-6, noon on ESPN Plus. State isn't favored by much here. Last I checked, it was by 13. But I'm going to go that they don't cover. I'm going Mississippi State 31-21. Jesse, what you got?
Yeah, this one, I need them to get a win. Bless them. I'm going to pick the Bulldogs in this one, but I'm not picking it by much. I'm going to take them 24-13.
All right. Next, Abilene Christian Wildcats, 5-5 at Texas A&M, 6-4, noon on ESPN Plus. Again, this is one that is expected to be a lot to a little. Picking numbers out of the sky here, A&M 49-7. Jesse?
Absolutely. Abilene Christian used to have a really great baseball program. I'm not sure if they still do, but really good program there. Football, not so much. So I'm going to go with the Aggies in this one, 38-13.
All right. Good pick there. All right. Next, Georgia, 10-0, 7-0 in the SEC at Tennessee, 7-3, 3-3 in the SEC. This is 3:30 on CBS. This is yet another week and another test for the Dogs. They've passed them so far, but this will be the toughest road game they've had all year with a very hostile environment. And Tennessee, like I said earlier, would love nothing more than to ruin Georgia's playoff chances. Question is, will that crowd noise be a factor? I think it will be to start off with, and we might see another one of those slow starts that, kind of became tradition at the beginning of the year, right? But I do think this might have a similar vibe to the Tennessee-Mizzou game, with it sort of slowly getting away from Tennessee and it being close at half, but Georgia starting to do more what they want in the second half. With Bowers back and McConkey hitting his stride at the right time, along with Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett, it's just tough to defend against the Dogs offense right now, especially with Amarius Mims back and us looking like we might be able to finally run block also. So that has been huge, as well as literally being huge. He's a huge individual who can move people. So I'm going with the Dogs in this one, 38-21. Jesse?
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe in the first quarter, it starts out a little back and forth, but then the Dogs pull away with this one. I'm going UGA 52-21.
Okay. I like that pick a lot better than mine. I hope that's more of the route that's
very
taken,
easy to be confident in a team when it's not your team.
Right. All right, let's move to New Mexico State Aggies. Their mascot is Pistol Pete. If you get the chance, you should look him up. Very entertaining. Not really sure if he's going to be allowed to keep those pistols. Anyway, 8-3 at Auburn, 6-4, 4:00 on SEC Network. I've got Auburn winning this one pretty big. Auburn 35-13. Jesse?
I think Auburn, taking a road win in a very complete performance for them is really encouraging. So I don't think they're going to have trouble this week. I'm picking the Tigers 31-10.
All right, next, Florida, 5-5, 3-4 in the SEC at Missouri, 8-2, 4-2 in the SEC. This is 7:30 on ESPN. As we mentioned, it's kind of nice that some of these inter-conference games are being scattered throughout. So we'll have good ones to watch, not just the smaller matchups. So Mizzou continues its good season. I think this is similar to Florida LSU last week. Lots of scoring and back and forth until the fourth quarter. And then I think Mizzou sort of pulls away. So I'm going with the Tigers 35-24. Jesse?
Yeah, I think Mizzou's put together a really complete performance this season. Obviously, they do have 2 losses, but still, I think despite having a lot of offense this past weekend for Florida, it's a road game. They're going into a place that you've said it's deceptively tough to play in. And I just don't know that Florida has the ability to put together a complete performance, whereas Mizzou, I think, does. So I'm going to go with the Tigers in this one, 35-17.
All right, next is the Florida International Panthers. Their mascot is Rory. Get it? Rory, the Panther. 4-6 at Arkansas, 3-7, 7:30 on ESPNU. Here we have a little bit of a short reprieve for Arkansas. I'm going Razorbacks 41-10. Jesse?
I'm hoping this is not a disappointing day for the Fayetteville faithful. So I am going to pick the Razorbacks in this one, 35-10, and really cross my fingers.
Yep. All right. The next game, Kentucky 6-4, 3-4 in the SEC at South Carolina, 4-6, 2-5 in the SEC. It's 7:30 on SEC Network. This one is expected to be really close. I'm thinking like within like a point or thereabouts. I'm gonna go South Carolina at home here, 27-24. Jesse?
Ooh, okay. This one I could have gone either way, honestly. They're very similar teams here. But I think this past weekend I may have seen. I'm starting to think myself out of it. No, okay. I'm just gonna stick with it.
Go with your gut.
My gut doesn't know what's happening. I'm picking Kentucky 31-21. I just think Spencer Rattler tries to put the team on his shoulders, but unfortunately he can't be a whole team. So I'm picking Kentucky.
Okay. All right. And then the final game of the evening, Georgia State Panthers. Pounce, a Blue Panther, is their mascot. Pretty cool. 6-4 at LSU, 7-3. This is 8:00 on ESPN2. I'm going LSU big here, but a lot of points on both sides are expected with Georgia State's Marcus Carroll, who's actually the number 3 leading rusher in the nation right now. So that's pretty cool. I'm going LSU here, 52-21. Jesse?
Yeah. Georgia State they can be deceptively good. I remember several years ago now, but when I was in school, Georgia State came to Tuscaloosa and they were actually the ones that put up the most complete performance against us. So was
that the crap through a tin horn, or was that Southern?
No, that was Southern.
Okay.
That was Southern.
I knew it was one of them. I couldn't remember. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but Georgia State also did that. But again, they don't stop Jaden Daniels. 700 total offensive yards. Like it's just no. I'm going to go with the Tigers here, 52-10. And it's a night game in Death Valley. Have some mercy.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, so that does it for the upcoming games. So we have a few tune-ups, but we also have a few expected close matchups in there as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. So that actually does it for this week's episode. We've had a lot to talk about between the games, old and upcoming, and then obviously we had the big news with Jimbo as well. So we'll see what happens there. Lots going on. As if the actual play on the field wasn't enough to talk about. We've got tons of extra stuff to talk about as well. So we appreciate everyone listening. If you'd like to contact us, please email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at PPSEC Podcast on X, or if you want to call it Twitter, it's all good. We are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and review. 5 stars, we would love that to increase our visibility and a chance to reach more people, have more conversations, more dialogue, and then have more conversations with the wonderful people on TikTok too. So we do appreciate the views and the interaction. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
It's happening. It's finally happened. All is right in the world. Once again, roll tide, y'all.